u/ForkPowerOutlet Askreddit. How have your political beliefs changed as you've aged?
Welcome to
AutoGenLabs.
Daily Reddit content
by robots.
For the internet.
I've basically given up on the belief that there is a side out there that is speaking for me. At this point, I just want them to leave me the beep alone and fix healthcare.
Yes. But unlike what we're told is the norm, I actually got more liberal as I aged. When I was younger, I thought that you just had to work hard to make a good life for yourself. As I got older, I recognised that rich people and corporations don't care about the American dream. I hope I will live to see the day that we fix this disparity. But we won't as long as the two wings in this country keep us distracted arguing about non-issues.
Just the constantly growing feeling the entire US political system is driven by bribery.
I was more right-leaning when I was younger. I believed anyone who worked hard and put in the effort could succeed. As I got older, I learned that's simply not true, and most poor people are not lazy or incompetent, but victims of circumstance.
I haven't changed allegiances. I've always been a leftist, but I've learned a lot more about the issues and about current events and history. For me, this has taken the form of deepening and strengthening most of my positions. I think where I have changed the most is that when I was a teenager, I believed in the neoliberal more of equal opportunity, which sounds nice but ultimately boils down to mean if you fail, you die, whereas now I think everybody should be guaranteed a basic material quality of life. I was never economically conservative, but I've completely rejected most neoliberal logic. Also, I've found more solidarity with the working class. I was raised in the middle class, and it wasn't until the 2010s that American politics even mentioned the working class existing because the neoliberal zeitgeist of the 80s erased poor people, and it turns out that despite being well-educated and an artist/creator, I am in the working class. It's not just factory floor schlubs, it's most of us, and honestly I have more in common with the schlubs than I do with the millionaires and billionaires who play games with our lives and livelihoods.
I just keep moving further left.
I used to think that just because a political candidate was black or female or insert relevant intersectionality here that they were better than the old white dudes. Now I just think we beep regardless of who wins.
Be kind to people, be ruthless to institutions, Michael Brooks.
I no longer think cookies for dinner is a good idea.
I've come to realise the dichotomy of politics, at least here in America, is a ruse to keep people frustrated with each other instead of actually working together to solve problems. If we stop blindly thinking the other side is trying to ruin everything, it's easy to see that people just want to have better lives for themselves and their families. The real enemy is our own complacency with the system we've been conditioned to believe is the best by the people who profit the most from it, the ones running it.
Possibly the biggest shift is from the notion that there is a set of political beliefs that are better and people should have, to the notion that politics is the method for making policy instead of war among people who do not and will not agree on things.
Everyone should realise that the entire system is a beep scam after paying attention to how it works, so I would hope so.
As a teenager and young adult, I was liberal and very vocal in discussions if the topic came up. At the time, I was religious and raised Protestant in a middle-class home in the Midwest. Now as a middle-aged adult, I am an atheist and upper middle class. I'm still liberal, if not more left-leaning, but no longer vocal about it. I found that aside from voting, I support the people and businesses I want to financially.
Definitely became more socialist as I've gotten older. Literally, the more successful I became, the more anti-capitalist I became.
Slowly realised that every single beep one of them is either useless or self-interested. I've yet to see a truly effective federal politician. I have never voted for any candidate in a federal election, only against a worse candidate. Also learned that female politicians are just as beep as men. We had a good woman who was replaced by a beep dude that was subsequently replaced with an even shittier woman. The future isn't female, it's just various degrees of beep. Doesn't matter who's running the show.
I have become more conservative as I get older.
Not much. People with money have a different set of rules. How like what exists today does not get overthrown, it decays from the inside out and then crumbles. I'm afraid that isn't too going to happen anytime soon.
Since I pay for my beep now, I have much stronger feelings against freeloaders and lazy people looking for a handout.
I've gotten more liberal. I was kind of a libertarian, curious, moderate liberal who had read Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged and thought Ayn Rand was kind of a beat, but also kind of right, circa 18 years old, and would seriously consider Republican candidates whose personality I liked. The rise of the Tea Party and then especially Donald Trump changed that for me. I look at American politics with a much more jaded view now, and I would not vote for the GOP for any office if my life depended on it. I think the party has become completely divorced from any real philosophy. It's just crazy people and grifters.
Hasn't changed at all. Yes, I'm not woke enough for Reddit though, to be fair.
I left the Republican Party back in 1995. They are no different than their Democratic counterparts. They take tons of money from big pharma, big business, the trial lawyers and big oil and just vote the way they want them to the status quo. The Dems are no different. The poor have no voice. None because of big money. If any senator wants to stay in office, he better vote the way the lobbyists want him to, or they will back his opponent and get him or thrown out. These senators and congressmen, they live the life better than royal family. Rich places to live, fabulous vacations, more beat than a beep star has. A golden parachute in Heathcare. You think they are going to give that up? And go back to a lowly life as a nobody in a one-bedroom apartment? That's why we need to get rid of both parties and have a third party. One that will put the needs of the poor first. That won't take a dime in money from lobbyists.
Living in a socialist/progressive country made me libertarian. I am totally in favour of social liberal politics, decriminalisation of abortion, drugs, same-beep marriage, same-beep adoption, etc. But at the same time I can see that a capitalist free market economy is much more efficient getting people out of poverty and creating wealth than a very regulated socialist one like my country.
Was originally hard left. Life in a largely democratic state turned me more centrist.
It's not that I've moved all that much, but the fact that extremists on both sides tend to vilify my centrist beliefs.
Over time, I've gradually grown further left as I learned more about the world and figured out how the systems of power we live under actually function.
I was a California Republican that was slightly right of centre on fiscal programs and slightly left on social causes. As I have aged and moved around the country meeting people in an area that grew up in different circumstances, I began understanding that not everyone gets treated like a middle-class white person. I moved more liberal even prior to the nation becoming so polarised at either extreme. I still consider myself moderate, but I don't recognise the Republican Party anymore, nor do I want to be represented by them. While there is stupidity on both sides, the MAGA Republicans are intent on punishing anyone that isn't with them lockstep.
100% the older I get, the more conservative I get. And I've always lived in very liberal cities.
20 years ago I was ridiculed for being a leftist. My opposition to war, racism, and censorship have not changed, but apparently these beliefs now make me a fascist.
In high school, I had no idea about politics, left or right. My first job was telemarketing, raising money over the phone for various democratic causes and candidates. I actually listened to the things these people were saying to me. 2 months in, I figured out I was a conservative. Been conservative ever since. Stayed in the job for another year though. It was fun challenging my own convictions.
I realise all politicians are the same bastards and that nobody should follow them.
Both parties are two sides of the same coin.
I find myself growing a bit more conservative. I'd like less government and red tape everywhere.
I am able to hear the other side now and not just shut down their ideas. Yes, I know I was very close-minded.
I started pretty liberal, but I've realised how beat both sides are and just want a moderate who can make real change that doesn't beep over one side or brown then as terrorists.
I keep moving further left, probably because I continue to interact with the American healthcare system.
I thought I was a Republican and then Trump got elected.
I'm 24. I grew up very liberal. I've become less so in my adulthood. I bought the lie that conservatives were racist, hateful people. I now think that everyone is just trying their best and that very few of us are willing to admit that we don't actually know the answers. Politics matter less and less to me with every presidential election. I feel like they are mostly just stuff to be seen talking about and have very little not none to do with my lived experience.
More rational for sure. Before I would believe almost anything I would read online or in a book, I went from a very moderate person to a very radical one in a short span of time. It wasn't until I actually lived on my own that I realised that most of what I learned was wrong. It's very easy to be roped in by the culture war currently happening in the USA without acknowledging what's actually behind it.
That everything I felt about Republicans that seemed extreme back in the day is now just how they are, openly.
I've become more moderate. You have to be able to see both sides to find a common ground.
I'm more right-leaning now.
As I have gotten older, smarter and gained more experience, I have learned that far-left policies that sound so perfect on paper end up leading to misery and even worse power imbalances. I think the more power and freedom the individual has, the better outside of harming someone else. I think the government should stay out of people's personal lives and leave social issues to society. While I generally now lean what is called right-wing, it used to be left-wing when I grew up in the 90s, but many of my ideals have stayed the same. It's just the left has changed completely and become the corporate war party. The new left has lost its mind, and the politicians and media elites only like it because it requires more power to enact its policy, effectively also requiring speech controls and a society with no shared values or traditions. It is easier to take away rights when people have nothing to defend. Family, rights, shared values, religion. I think kids are completely inexperienced, and you should not even be able to vote until you are 25 or even 30. Letting 18 years olds vote in the current year is a death sentence for the Western world. You might get your socialism, but it's going to be utterly corrupt, and at that point we will have no way to undo its Second Amendment.
Thanks for watching. This has been an AutoGenLabs production. That means that this video was created by a robot out of content on Reddit. We show all account names and list them in the description to credit the Redditor community that makes our work possible. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to our channel. We post new videos every day. If you have any suggestions for videos you would like to see, please leave a comment. Our human department for public relations reads all of them, or won't be let out of their cages again. Goodbye.